Number 20, The Girl Next Door.
Thanks, David. That was fun.
Hey, back where?
We're staying with our cousins, the Chandlers.
Based on John Ketchum's 1989 novel, this horror drama is such a harrowing watch, it will make you ache to learn that its based on true events message wasn't only a marketing ploy.
You understand how girls get squeamish, don't you? And Meg here's a lady. Why, sure she is.
Unfortunately, this tale about a child who's tormented under the watchful eye of a supposed guardian is based on a 1965 case of Sylvia Likens.
The game is she's gotta tell.
Okay. Tell what?
Something secret.
Sounds right.
Although a few things are changed from the real story, The Girl Next Door puts a lot of this crime's cruelty on full display. Stephen King described it as, quote, a long look into hell, suburban style.
Tony told his mother that he'd seen several other boys from the neighborhood over here beating up on Meg.
Oh, well, you know kids, Officer Jennings. They're always exaggerating. It was probably just a little roughhousing.
Number 19, Them, aka Il.
Allô?
This French-Romanian horror film was allegedly inspired by the story of an Austrian couple that was killed while traveling in the Czech Republic.
Qu'est-ce qu'il y a?
T'as pas entendu?
Quoi?
Y a du bruit dehors.
The movie follows a French woman, Clémentine, who's moved into a house just outside of Bucharest, Romania. When strangers invade her home, Clémentine and her boyfriend Luca run out into the woods. Yeah, that's not going to end well. No evidence has surfaced to support this film's claim that it was based on reality, but the fact that it might have been makes it all the more scary, playing on our fear of random, senseless crimes. Number 18, Primeval.
Nobody sees little Gustave, except those he means to kill.
Man-eating animals are always terrifying, but none more so than Gustave, a 1-ton, 25-foot-long Nile crocodile in Burundi.
That's a wound to villagers. I believe they kept him tied out there as an offering to the croc.
In real life, it's alleged that this terrifying creature has killed upwards of 300 people, though an exact number is hard to determine. Either way, his reputation has reached legendary proportions. Primeval follows a group of American journalists who seek to study the monstrous croc at their peril. Needless to say, their field trip does not go as planned. Maybe just leave the man-eating animal alone next time, guys?
The crocodile rules the water.
Number 17, The Strangers. Director-screenwriter Brian Bertino drew on the crimes of the Manson family as well as personal experience for this home invasion horror film. Bertino stated he remembers a group of people knocking on the doors in his neighborhood asking if a made-up person was home.
Is Tamara here?
No. No, you got the wrong house.
If no one answered the door, they would rob the house. His movie takes on a much more sinister approach, focusing instead on a group that wants to kill innocent people in their homes for no reason. As with Them, it's the randomness and senselessness of their acts that leaves you shivering.
Why are you doing this to us?
Because you were home.
Number 16, An American Haunting. Much like the Blair Witch Project, this movie draws inspiration from the Bell Witch legend of Adams, Tennessee.
The story of the Bell Witch has always been considered to be a tall tale. This is not so.
According to lore, the family of John Bell, a farmer in the 1800s, was targeted by a dead witch known as Kate Batts. Batts' poltergeist apparently harassed the family physically, made them hear sounds, and displaced objects in their house. She mainly targeted the family's youngest, Betsy, but poisoned John Bell. Switching between the 19th and 21st centuries, An American Haunting brings this terrifying tale into the present day. Number 15, Compliance. The most chilling thing about this story has to be the cruelty that some are willing to inflict on the innocent.
Kevin, this is Officer Daniels. I'm the lead officer in the case. Has your manager explained what's going on?
Well, she said that Becky stole something and her brother's arrested.
Starting in the early 90s, various fast food restaurants in the United States began to complain about prank calls to their stores, in which a supposed police officer would accuse an employee of a crime.
Well, I have a customer here with me that says her purse was taken.
Well, I was out there the whole time, and, I didn't see anyone.
The officer would then ask the manager to interrogate and harass the employee in various ways.
So, I'm gonna need you to have her stripped down now. Look through everything.
Okay.
Compliance focuses on an eerily similar 2004 incident that happened in Mount Washington, Kentucky.
Who are you?
Yes, I'll have an original chic witch, and I'll have one of those frost blenders. I'm just kidding, Sandra. It's me. It's Officer Daniels. Messing with you. Thank you.
Number 14, The Haunting in Connecticut. In this supernatural horror flick, the Snedeker family moves to Connecticut to be closer to their cancer-stricken son's doctor.
You're not gonna be scared in here all alone?
I've got my toys.
They discover that their new home used to be a funeral parlor. Even worse, those who ran the mortuary had questionable practices, including necromancy.
Oh, for God's sakes. Just leave me alone!
The movie is supposedly based on a true story, fueled by Carmen Snedeker's claim that she was haunted by a, quote, evil entity.
So supposedly they contacted the dead through Jonah, and people came to have chats with their dead hubby or wife or find out where Auntie Mame hid the family jewels. Now he claims that he discovered how to amplify the seances.
The house was examined by Ed and Lorraine Warren and exorcised in 1988. However, many researchers believe that the story was a hoax, with Ed allegedly telling author Ray Garton to, quote, just make it up and make it scary. Number 13, Ravenous. Starvation and desperation can make people do strange things.
Wendigo eats. Must eat more. He never enough. He takes. Never gives.
The Western horror film Ravenous is not based on one specific historical incident, but it does take inspiration from different sources, primarily the life of Alfred Packer and the Donner Party.
He killed everyone. Cahoon killed everyone!
Along with some nods to these real incidents of humans eating their dead, Ravenous presents the idea that once someone tries it, nothing else will ever satisfy them again.
Get away from me! Get away from me!
Atmospheric, unsurprisingly gory, weirdly comedic, and featuring a mesmerizing performance by Robert Carlyle, Ravenous uses history and myth to craft a strange but captivating horror film.
Captain Boyd.
Captain. How's the leg?
Number 12, Wolf Creek. Rather than being based on one set of circumstances, this film is an amalgamation of various real-life events. These include the crimes of two Australian killers, Ivan Milat and Bradley John Murdoch.
What did he actually do? Now.
Oh, I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
Both preyed on tourists. Milat in the late 80s and early 90s, and Murdoch in 2001 when he attacked British traveler Peter Falconio and his girlfriend Joanne Lees. Paralleling the events of the movie, the couple was driving through the Australian outback when their car was flagged down by a stranded motorist.
Bang!
Lees managed to escape but heard gunshots. Falconio was never seen again, and his body hasn't been recovered.
Like your little mate said before, you know, that's not a knife. This is a knife.
Number 11, The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
I don't care about my reputation. I'm not afraid of jail. What I care about is telling Emily Rose's story.
This film is based on the life of German woman Anneliese Michel, who experienced seizures and was diagnosed with epileptic psychosis.
Emily?
Don't touch me!
Due to her aversion to religious objects, her parents contacted the Catholic Church to request an exorcism. 2 priests answered the call and performed a total of 67 exorcisms.
And lead us not into temptation,
but deliver us from evil!
The results were disastrous, with Mikhail dying from malnutrition and dehydration. This movie expands on that story by following the exorcist as he's tried for homicide.
After that night, why do you think Emily refused another exorcism?
I believe she'd accepted her fate.
The incident also inspired 2 other films, 2006's Requiem and 2011's Annalisa, The Exorcist tapes. Number 10, Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Henry Lee Lucas may seem like the stuff of nightmares, but unfortunately, he's based on a real-life figure.
I'm not saying you can't use a gun, just don't use the same gun twice.
Active between the years 1960 and 83, Lucas claimed to have committed hundreds of murders. Initially, the police accepted his claims. It turned out most of his confessions were false.
Did you really kill your mama?
What?
Did you really kill your mama?
I guess I did.
However, he was convicted of 11 homicides, 3 of which were confirmed. The film states that it was inspired by his life and fantasies more than his actual murders, but it did get many details right, including his childhood maltreatment by his prostitute mother and his partnership with Otis Toole.
She's your sister. Okay, I was only kidding around, Henry. Tell her you're sorry.
Number 9, Scream. Underneath Scream's satirical tone and marketable slasher villain lies a story about a small town driven to chaos by a string of violent murders.
Is that Sidney Prescott they took away? I'm not talking to you. What happened to her? None of your damn business.
The script behind Wes Craven's 90s horror flick was sparked into existence by the Gainesville murders committed by Daniel Rowling in 1990.
He called me again last night at Tatum's house.
You see? Couldn't have been me. I was in jail. Remember?
While there are a couple of similarities, Scream's screenwriter was primarily inspired by the widespread fear caused by the killings. It's the idea that there could be a faceless psychopath standing outside the window waiting for the opportunity to strike. Number 8, Poltergeist. Poltergeists are malicious spirits said to be fond of scaring the bejesus out of people through abrupt noises and movements, and they are hardly a modern concept.
They're here.
The 1982 movie had plenty of tales and myths to fall back on, and one particularly influential disturbance involved the prolonged haunting of the Herman family residence in 1958.
1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000.
Over about a month, the family was subjected to loud popping noises and unexplainable phenomena, incidents that left police and scientists stumped.
Poltergeists are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area.
Poltergeist naturally adds a bit of cinematic flair, special effects, skeletons, and televisions to proceedings. Number 7, The Conjuring. The premise of this film, at least, is true.
You said she's a conduit.
That's right.
What does that mean?
Well, very powerful demonic has latched itself onto her.
In 1971, paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren really were asked to investigate the Perrin family home, which was reportedly being haunted by the less than hospitable Bathsheba.
All night long, just like that. Does it come in threes?
Yeah.
Stops at dawn?
A masterfully directed horror film with a strong cast, The Conjuring brought renewed interest to this sensational case and undoubtedly inspired its fair share of nightmares along the way.
Nancy?
The movie does change a few things to tell a more cinematic story, including an ending that sees the Warrens successfully exorcise the house of its unwanted guests.
Remember what you showed me. Remember that day that you said you would never forget.
Number 6, A Nightmare on Elm Street. It's hard to believe there's even a grain of truth to this fantastical blockbuster story, but truth is stranger than fiction.
Come to Freddy.
Wes Craven loosely based his franchise on a series of articles he read in the Los Angeles Times in the 70s. They were about a group of Southeast Asian refugees who experienced horrific nightmares which led to insomnia and sleep deprivation.
It's too late, Krueger. I know the secret now. This is just a dream. You're not alive.
Worse yet, a few died suddenly in their sleep despite having no other medical problems. And that's how the nightmare figure of Freddy Krueger was born. Number 5, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Hello? Is anybody home?
The notorious murderer Ed Gein has served as a loose inspiration for plenty of horror films, with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre being one of the most famous. The similarities mostly come down to Leatherface's mask, as Gein also fashioned such keepsakes, although not in order to hide a physical deformity like the movie's killer. The film's disturbing house also bears some resemblance to Ed Gein's grotesque flesh-themed home. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is far from an Ed Gein biopic, but the film's grisly aesthetic reflects the depraved nature of the murderer's crimes.
Now don't you cry, none. Old Grandpa's the best. It won't hurt a bit.
Number 4, The Exorcist. Regarded as one of the greatest horror movies ever, The Exorcist depicts two priests' struggle to liberate a girl possessed by the demon Pazuzu. While exorcisms have been around for centuries, a 1949 incident in St. Louis was the primary inspiration behind The Exorcist.
Answer me now.
The exorcism of Roland Doe lasted for weeks and saw the boy act in similar ways to Regan in The Exorcist, sans some of the film's more head-turning scenes. The Exorcist doesn't need a link to reality to be terrifying, but this background adds a new dimension to the classic film.
That the power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Number 3, The Amityville Horror.
I like to refer to this as a fixer-upper that can be fun.
One of the most controversial horror movies inspired by true events, The Amityville Horror chronicles the Lutz family's stay in a house that had recently seen a gruesome tragedy.
And when he was at trial, he testified that he heard voices in the house. He heard voices in the house, and the voices told him to do it.
With pig creatures, walls spouting blood, and ancient burial grounds, The Amityville Horror presumably takes a few liberties with a story that has plenty of skeptics. But the grim murders that started everything undoubtedly happened. Taken on its own, The Amityville Horror is a quintessential haunted house movie, a tale about a fractured family driven to the point of insanity by mind-breaking phenomena.
Don't hurt my baby!
Kathy?
Number 2, Jaws.
I'm only trying to say that Amity is a summer town. We need summer dollars.
Steven Spielberg's legendary horror film has been striking fear into the hearts of viewers for decades. Although a fictional story, Jaws is partially inspired by the Jersey Shore shark attacks of 1916, which saw 4 victims fall prey to sharks in under 2 weeks. Along with any direct influence it might have had on the movie, this tragedy also impacted the public perception of sharks, arguably adding legitimacy to Jaws' premise.
A shark is attracted to the exact kind of splashing and activity that occurs whenever human beings go in swimming. You cannot avoid it.
If you open the beaches on the 4th of July, it's like ringing the dinner bell, for Christ's sake.
A masterclass of suspense that demonstrates how less is sometimes more, Jaws taps into legitimate fear through its clever direction and tight script.
Smile, you son of a...
Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honorable mentions. Borderland, based on Adolfo Constanzo's narco-Satanist cult.
What do you want with me?
You're the man of the hour, amigo. You're gonna get to meet Papa real soon. He's an amazing man.
The Mothman Prophecies. Plenty of Point Pleasant residents claimed to have seen a Mothman in the late 60s.
The nocturnal butterfly.
In ancient cultures, the moth represents a form of the psyche or the soul immortally trapped in the hellish death realms.
Black water. A crocodile claimed one victim and stalked 2 others in 2003.
Come on, let him go! Let him go!
Number 1, Psycho. The Psycho novel and Hitchcock's adaptation were released only a few years following the capture and trial of Ed Gein.
Are you sure you wouldn't like to stay just a little while longer? Just for talk?
I'd like to, but...
All right.
Norman Bates is a socially awkward but seemingly harmless outcast defined by his unhealthy relationship with his fanatical and harsh mother, traits reminiscent of the real-life murderer. Although Gein influenced the presentation of Norman Bates in various ways, the character's crimes were wholly the invention of Robert Bloch, the book's author. A landmark release in the slasher genre, Psycho holds up as a stylish and frightful exploration of violence and madness. Hitchcock's The Birds is also based on a real incident, when birds around California's Monterey Bay suddenly started to dive into people's homes.
Even if this is true, even if all
Well, don't
this
you
works-
believe it's true?
No, Miss, frankly, I don't.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.